Exactly. We've had hemp fests in the past, but some of the folks who were organizing it just couldn't do it this year. But the ones up in Seattle have traditionally been a lot larger. So watch next month, and we'll have some coverage of that for you. I think now's a good time to go down to the Saturday market. If you just want to sign the petition and don't want us to send it to you, what you can do is you can come down to our booth down at Portland Saturday Market. There are also petitioners at the Eugene Saturday Market, and there you can sign the petition. And so we have a little interview with the other chief petitioner. Paul and I are both chief petitioners on the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, but our other chief petitioner is Dr. Philip Levesque, a retired professor of pharmacology and toxicology that taught up here at the current OHSU, also taught at Georgetown University and a number of other universities around the world. So, without any further ado, here's an interview with Dr. Levesque down at our Portland Saturday Market booth. You're welcome to come down and sign our petition, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. And today we have one of our chief petitioners at our booth, Dr. Philip Levesque. Dr. Levesque is a retired professor of pharmacology and a lobbyist for AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons. Hello, Dr. Levesque.
Good afternoon.
Tell us why you decided to be a chief petitioner to regulate the sale of marijuana to adults and allow doctors to prescribe it through pharmacies.
I practice medicine in Malala, and I found out either directly or indirectly that many of my patients were not only using my prescriptions for the control of pain, but they were also smoking marijuana. So I did an investigation of my own and found out that marijuana has been used for thousands of years and very effectively for a whole variety of different kinds of problems.
Would you tell us what your credentials are?
I have a PhD in pharmacology, and I'm an osteopathic doctor. I taught pharmacology and toxicology for approximately 30 years.
All right. Well, we really thank you again for being a chief petitioner. We need people with your types of credentials to sign on. Is there anything you'd like to tell our television audience?
Sign this petition and get this back on the ballot. We had 2 votes to make marijuana available for medical purposes. It's time that the hypocrisy quit and we make it available not only for medical purposes but also for recreational purposes, which it is being used for right now. But a person who uses for recreational purposes and is caught by the police could lose his home, his car, his bank accounts, any of his assets that he had. This will correct that.
Well, thank you again. Appreciate it. All right, thanks. So there we were down at the Saturday Market. We invite you, come on down to the Saturday Market. We also invite you to just call us. If you don't want to head down to the Saturday Market, we'll send it to you. We'd be happy to do that. Call us at 235-4606. If you're outside of the Portland area, that's 503-235-4606. We have positions available for paid petitioners in both Oregon and Washington. And we have our regular volunteer campaign that we'd love for you to be involved in. So give us a call.
Yeah, and you saw a little bit of Saturday Market there. And come on down. Especially if you can come down and you want to sign it and you don't know anybody else who will sign it with you, instead of us mailing you one and costing us a postage stamp and then you a postage stamp mail in the back, come on down, enjoy the fun of Saturday Market, and meet some fellow activists and sign a petition. And who knows, maybe Dr. Levesque will be there because he's a real colorful character, really knowledgeable in his field of pharmacology and toxicology. Talks over my head sometimes. And you can meet some dedicated volunteers who've been on the street, talking with people all the time, like Floyd Landreth, who's down there usually almost every Saturday. He sees the direct impact that our prohibition has on your fellow citizens, on your neighbors, because he's out there helping folks who are trapped in that vicious cycle of prohibition. So
And he
come
does
on down.
needle exchange.
Yes,
so the
he-
folks who are addicted to hard drugs go to Floyd 5 days a week, and they exchange needles, which keeps the neighborhoods clean. At least around there, you don't find used needles laying around in the gutter because the folks can go trade them in for new ones for free. So it's
Yep.
a really valuable public service, and he gives out free food to folks too.
Yeah, so it's, and it provides a little community for people. So
Yeah. There's a story out of a German language paper in out of Luxembourg. It's in the Luxembourg policy. They announce a new drug policy for Luxembourg. These changes were agreed upon by the main political parties there, the Christian Democrats and the Liberal Democrats. And it's their intention to enshrine a newly defined health-based drug policy into law. Current policies won't be changed as much as extended and strengthened and made official. It says hardcore addicts will be given heroin and put into the methadone program, and that penalties for consumption of soft drugs, another word for marijuana and hashish, will be reduced to a fine. Judges will be empowered to reduce the penalties if accompanied by therapy courses, it says. Of course, this is translated from German, so it's a little rough here. It says,
a little stilted.
a little stilted. Luxembourg is keeping its eyes firmly fixed on, quote, the limits of the possible. There can be no doubt that Prime Minister Juncker intends to fix the new drug policy in a bill that he hopes to pass in the next 5 years. So they're changing their drug policies and making them more realistic there in Luxembourg. Luxembourg's a tiny country between Germany and France.
So are they basing their policies on Netherlands experiment there, or?
On the Netherlands and Swiss policies, it does appear that they're trying to base their policies there. You know, France, like the United States, is strongly prohibitionist.
Yeah.
And Germany, it has been pretty prohibitionist, not as strong as the French, but it has been prohibitionist, but it's become much more open in several states.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the difference, I think, between France and Germany over there. France is a very centralized government.
Mm-hmm.
Everything comes out of Paris. You know, the localities don't really have much power. While in Germany, they have states, like we have here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And there they have, quite a bit of power, individual states, and what
Mm-hmm.
they do. And different states there have experimented with different ways of dealing with soft drugs, trying to separate out soft drugs from harder drugs. And then, so some of them, on the borders with Netherlands, because they've seen the impact of Netherlands, and so they're trying to fix it in Germany there, and then some of the former states that are in the former East Germany, because they've had a lot of problems there with unemployment and people turning to drugs and people trying to make money off of the prohibition policies. And so there's a lot of different ways people are doing it, and so it's kind of interesting to see what will come out of over there, and I'm sure it'll give us some lessons here as we try to figure out what's the best way to go for our drug policy reform, separate out soft drugs from harder drugs, and to provide treatment for folks. And that's what we want to do is to take the market for adult marijuana and take it out of the hands of the black market and put it into the state liquor stores where it's strictly regulated, the sales are regulated.
And the age limit of 21 is enforced, too.
Yes.
That's one thing. In the black market, you can ask any high school kid, what's easier to get, beer or marijuana? And they're going to say every time that marijuana is much easier to get than beer and just infinitely easier to get than distilled alcohol.
Yeah, so that's what we want to do is to bring a realistic policy, on marijuana, cannabis, here in the state of Oregon. That's what we're all about, and this is the best way to go about it. We think it's been looked at as far as the international treaties and how it will fit in with that. And I know we talk about that on numerous shows. So if you're a faithful watcher, you probably don't want us to go into it right now. But this is what we're trying to do. We want to bring change to this. And so, do we have any more good news or bad news articles that we want to share with folks?
Well, here's one that just highlights the corruption that drug laws cause. It's about the U.S. Army in Colombia. It says the wife of a senior U.S. Army colonel who's in charge of the anti-drug efforts led by the U.S. in the country of Colombia turned herself into authorities on Thursday after being charged with conspiracy to distribute cocaine. Lori Ann Haight, the wife of U.S. Army Colonel James Haight, was served with an arrest warrant in late June after a package containing 2.7 pounds of cocaine was mailed from the U.S. military base in Bogota with her name on the return address label, according to the affidavit.
That wasn't very bright.
No, no. A Pentagon official told CNN that Ms. Haight surrendered in New York City. As a result of the case, the U.S. military investigated Colonel Haight and cleared him of any wrongdoing. The Village Voice, a New York weekly newspaper, first broke the story about the arrest warrant, and CNN later obtained documents related to the case. According to the affidavit, undercover U.S. postal inspectors and New York City police officers delivered the package from Ms. Haight, wrapped in brown paper, about 12 by 4 and 6 inches, with an address to a New York City address, and arrested a man who tried to flee the residence. Apparently, this man said he'd received 5 or 6 shipments like this and had been paid $1,500 for each of the previous deliveries. An affidavit says Ms. Haight was interviewed and stated that, quote, stated that she had sent 6 packages to New York through the mail on behalf of her husband's chauffeur. She claimed that she did not know the contents of the packages she'd shipped. A spokesman for the U.S. Southern Command told CNN that the husband was investigated after the incident occurred and has been cleared of any wrongdoing. However, the Army said Colonel Haight requested and was granted a transfer from Bogota, where he was in charge of the U.S. military group providing assistance to the Colombian counter-narcotics effort.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there that said he requested a transfer. They probably gave him 5 seconds to request one before they would, kick him out of the country there. 'Cause it doesn't look very good when the head of the anti-drug efforts in Colombia, the U.S. head, his wife is involved in smuggling. I mean, either she was knowingly or she's very, very
naive.
Because I mean, they always ask you when you send anything overseas, you have to put on, whether from the U.S. or to the U.S., you have to put on a form what's in the package. I mean, that's because the customs, in each country, they want to know, and they have the right to know. And so, and she claims she didn't know it. I mean, how naive could she be?
It just shows the impossible, target that we're shooting at. That the government is financing. Here, we send these people down there to wipe out drugs, and what are they doing? Whether naively or purposely, they're shipping more cocaine back to the United States. It's just
and especially,
crazy policy.
Yeah, and in Colombia, I don't know if folks have been following the news out of there, but it's pretty scary what's coming out. The U.S. recently lost one of its most sophisticated spying planes down in Colombia. There's only like 7 of these planes that existed in the world, and one went down there with a bunch of U.S. people on board. And Barry McCaffrey's been doing a big tour down there, and he's requesting more money be sent down there, an ungodly sum of money. I think that's our next
over $1 billion.
Yeah, and that's probably our next war. People are already talking about Vietnam there, because the rebels who are there, opposing the oligarchy that controls the country, have lined themselves up with the drug growers, and they control, I think, almost half the country now. And that's pretty significant. We don't hear much about that. Here's this rebel force that controls half of one of our allies. And the U.S. doesn't want to see, a country taken over by people that don't have a problem with people growing drugs. It'll be really interesting to see what comes out of there. I mean, already, in Afghanistan, where, people have grown it there, we've just lobbed over cruise missiles when we feel like it to Afghanistan. So it's pretty scary what's going to happen right here in our own hemisphere, because we still believe in the Monroe Doctrine, our government does, that we want to control everything that happens in this hemisphere.
So that's another situation. Here's an article from Massachusetts about forfeiture laws and see how money corrupts law enforcement. To see how money corrupts law enforcement agencies, look at the effects of asset forfeiture laws. A police officer can take all the money you're carrying and the car you're driving when stopped on the mere suspicion that you are a drug dealer, yet never charge you with a crime. And it will take you years and thousands of dollars to recover your property, if it's even possible to recover it. Your car may have been sold already or badly damaged. In such forfeiture, called civil asset forfeiture because you were never charged with a crime, you must prove in a court of law that the money and the car are legally yours and were never involved in some crime. In other words, you have to prove you are an innocent party. And, stupid as it sounds, you may have to prove that your property is innocent too. The government doesn't have to prove you're guilty of anything. While it may be easy to prove you are the legal owner of a car, it's far more difficult to prove that the money you're carrying is money you earned at your job. Imagine how hard it would be to prove your car or money were never used to facilitate a crime. An attorney can cost you thousands of dollars to sue for recovery of your property. Legal counsel is not provided in such cases. Many people in similar situations simply let go and don't try to recover their property. Why spend $6,000 on attorney fees to recover $5,000? Just doesn't make sense. And that's what they count on, are these civil asset forfeiture. You know, until these laws were passed in the late 80s under Ronald Reagan, this was never allowed. It was considered unconstitutional for the government to seize and use your property. It's one of those things that needs to be reformed, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not much that needs to be said about that. I still think it's unconstitutional, even though maybe have, those 9 people sitting up on a bench in Washington, D.C. haven't quite seen the way that I think majority of Americans see it, but it'll change. I mean, at one time, remember the Supreme Court said it was okay to lock up Japanese citizens just because they were of Japanese ancestry and living here in the U.S.
Right.
So it'll change, and that's what we have to help facilitate that change. We have to be able to work to inform people. When you're sitting around with your friends, and maybe some of you folks out there that enjoy adult use of marijuana, and you know who you are out there if you're watching this show, sign the petition. And as Paula says, register to vote. Get your friends registered to vote. Make sure they sign the petition. Because you're tired of being a criminal, I'm sure, every time you decide to enjoy yourself. So please, give us a phone call, sign that petition. And what's the number, Paul?
It's 235-4606. That's, if you're outside of the Portland area, that's 503-235-4606. You can currently print our Oregon petition out from our website if you have a printer and access the internet at www.crrh.org. If you can just sign the petition yourself or get a few friends to sign, call us. If you'd like to actually get more involved and be a volunteer on a larger basis, give us a call and mention that. Or if you'd like to be paid for petitioning, we do have positions available in both Oregon and Washington where we're currently paying petitioners to put the Cannabis Tax Act on the ballot in Oregon and on the ballot in Washington. We need 90,000 signatures to qualify here in Oregon. We need about 275,000 signatures to qualify in Washington. So give us a call. We need your help.
Yeah, and give us a call so you don't have to be a criminal anymore or treated like a criminal just because you're an adult. And it's a shameful what's going on in this country right now, going on here in the state of Oregon. We need to change that, and the best way to do it right now is the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. So thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next week, same time, same station, and good night, Paul.
Good night.